What's going on, everybody? Welcome back. Another edition of the DFS OGs podcast, back to break down everything week 14 here in part one. I am your host, Chris Beermaker's Fan Prince, joined as I am every single week by my boys, Ed Chopper and Notorious. Guys, let's talk week 13 real quick. What went right? What went wrong? How did everything go? What's going on? Chop, we'll start with you, buddy.
Yeah, I mean, week 13 was very forgettable. In fact, I wish I could erase it from my memory. They had the nice little $100 buy-in millionaire maker, but ultimately it's still, a pretty bad payout structure. But, $100 thins out the field a little bit, so I went for that. And, you don't have some of the big guys in there, you're gonna end up losing pretty much everything, and that's how that went. No Kelsey. Was the first thing, and one of those what-ifs weeks. Like, I just had too many running backs that I really liked, and so I couldn't quite fit Phillip Lindsay on there, and obviously that comes back and bites you. And the way those things work, you look at his ownership at being right around 28% or so, and once he has that kind of a game and you don't have him, 28% of the field, that's beyond the cash line right there. Yeah, you're pretty much sunk. So that's how my week went.
Yeah, no Kelsey, no cash this week for sure. And Lindsey, just that home run hitter. The guy put up massive numbers once again. So we'll see if he can continue that role. We'll talk about him when we get to that game. Derek, hopefully your week 13 was a little better than Chops.
Yeah, it wasn't bad. It was close to a big week. I feel like I've been saying that a lot lately. So maybe something will break through. Ended up making a lot of good decisions with Gurley, paying up for two of my running back spots. But, yeah, no Lindsey for me, so that hurt. And I played Tyreek Hill over Kelsey, which also hurt a little bit. So, for me, week 13's in the mirror and ready to get at it for week 14.
All right, that's how we roll. Looking forward. Let's start with week 14. We always start with Thursday night and break it down from the showdown point of things. We got Jacksonville and Tennessee here. Chop, we'll start with you. Two teams it's tough to get excited about offensively. So is this a kicker game, a defensive game, or maybe you got some more offensive players than I'm seeing? Looks like an ugly game in my book.
Nothing like kicking that week off with a little 37.5 total on a game. Man.
Fireworks, baby.
This is pretty nasty, but at least it's kind of a competitive game, and Tennessee's obviously in the mix for the playoffs. Jacksonville thinks they are, but, I mean, we all know that they're pretty much done, but they like to think they are. So, I don't know. I mean, I would say that at this point, yeah, I'm leaning towards kickers and defense here, but Mariota, you can always float him out there on an island. You don't even have to pair him with anybody. Maybe Jonnu Smith if you wanted to. This may be the Dion Lewis game finally. It would be the Dion Lewis game that comes in an island game where you can only play it in the showdown. So maybe that's the guy. For Jacksonville, it's tough to get excited about any of these guys with Kessler as your quarterback, but I would lean Fournette. And if I'm going to take a stab on anybody, I'm going to take a stab on Keelan Cole. But, yeah, I'm like you said in the beginning, I think I'm leaning right here, defenses and kickers to get it done this week.
And they kind of priced the defenses up a little bit. I mean, Titans sitting at $6K, Jags at $5,800. Those kickers, though, they're still lurking down in the threes. So I think both those guys can be attractive options. Derek, this is your team, buddy. Tell us what the hell we're doing here with Jacksonville.
Yeah, I'll tell you what I'll be doing. I'll be playing the Thursday to Monday slate, and I'll be fading this game completely. I'll let everyone else chase those points, hopefully. But if you are playing the showdown slate, yeah, it's pretty ugly. The only guy I really like from Jacksonville would be Leonard Fournette. Got that extra week of rest after being suspended. Think he's going to get, 20-plus touches in this one. Even if they were playing from behind, it's a spot where they don't really have anything else to work with. So I do expect, a lot of work for Fournette. It's not a great matchup by any means. Tennessee's been really good against the run. But I don't really want to play, Kessler or any of his, wideouts there. As far as Tennessee goes, it's probably going to be a Dion Lewis type of game for me. Derrick Henry might get, have problem getting things going against the Jacksonville defense. They've been pretty good against the run. Corey Davis, I feel like they're going to sell out to stop him a little bit. So, yeah, I mean, Dion Lewis and Fournette probably going to be my two favorite plays, but I think I'm just going to take Thursday off in terms of the showdown and then, take it off in terms of the Thursday to Monday slate as well.
Yeah, it looks like a sharp move there. Just not play the game at all. I mean, and how the mighty have fallen. Keelan Cole at 2,000. I mean, the guy had such high hopes coming into the year and just as disappointed as has that entire offense. So ugly game. I'll take a few shots in that showdown, but I'm with you, Derek. I think it's mostly a fade for me. Let's move on to Sunday and hopefully get some better games. Bad news is we're going to start one just as bad as what we just talked about. Jets and Bills. Derek, my goodness, this is about as bad as it gets. I mean, the news here is Kelvin Benjamin was released today. So do you believe in Zay Jones? I guess is the big question. Josh Allen, as much as we like to bash him and he takes a beating on Twitter, he's putting up numbers. So is that of interest, or is this just another fade spot here?
There's always going to be some appeal in a quarterback that can run. Over the last 2 weeks, he's had 99 and 135 rushing yards. So I do think you can play him in tournaments. Definitely not going to be my cash game, go-to quarterback. I think LaShawn McCoy is at least somewhat interesting. I know this game does have a low total, but, these two teams combined for 51 in their first meeting. McCoy played 75% of the snaps last week, had 19 opportunities, 15 rushes, and 4 targets. So if you're looking for a cheap running back with some upside, in a game where they could be playing from ahead, McCoy is not the worst play. I'll let everyone else chase the Zay Jones production. He only caught 4 balls last week for 67 yards. 2 of them happened to find the end zone. I'm not really buying it. I'll let others chase that. And then for the Jets, just not a lot to like for me. I know that, Isaiah Crowell looked pretty good last week, handled most of the work out of the backfield. But this is a game where they could be trailing, so maybe it's the Elijah McGuire game. For the most part, I think I'll just be avoiding that side of the ball.
Yeah, Zay Jones, one of the guys you like to have in best ball because you're going to get them big weeks, but I'm with you. I'm not going to trust that. I'm not going to chase that production. Chop, thoughts on Zay Jones and the rest of this game, Jets and Bills?
Zay Jones, not very interesting, but I would say that I do have some interest in some of these other guys, though. Like Derek said, I pretty much echo what Derek said. LaShawn McCoy, I mean, at some point you would expect a decent game out of him. So this is as good of a bet as any right here. He's getting the workload, the snaps, and all that other stuff, and here's some good competition. Josh Allen, I have some interest there. He's definitely moved on to the radar for me. Like, I laughed at him the first half of the season, but he's moved on my radar as a GPP every week quarterback. Put him in your GPP pool every single week. Not the cash game pool, but GPPs absolutely. He's got upside with that running, man, and I'm more and more impressed by him each game I watch him. So I can go with that, but when I do that, I'm not going to have to pair him with anybody. I do like to pair my quarterbacks with receivers. It gives you that upside, but I won't be doing that with Josh Allen. There's a couple, when I do my RotoGrinders lineup builder, I try to manipulate it to where I'll pair a receiver with a quarterback with a receiver, but there are some guys I make exceptions for, like Cam Newton. I would accept McCaffrey as his handcuff if I can get that set up, and then Josh Allen's a guy I don't want to pair with anybody. So it's just the way I view that. On the other side, the Jets, I would have a lot less interest in the Jets in general here. This is a pretty decently tough Buffalo defense in Buffalo. Probably going to be cold, nasty weather this time of year. I could probably pass on all that. In fact, I may even keep the Buffalo defense in my player pool.
Yeah, I mean, 38's the total we're looking at right here. So definitely defenses. Allen, I like the point there. I mean, the running ability. Guy was not that much of a runner in college, so it's, kind of a newfound thing. But any quarterback going to rush for 100 yards plus some upside with his arm is intriguing. I'll agree with you there. Now, Chop, I'd love to tell you it's going to get better here as we move along, but the next game we got Giants and Washington. So NFC East battle here. Washington, we know, took a beating in Philadelphia. The Giants, big home win against the Bears, though. So maybe they're playing inspired football here. NFC East, who you liking here? Giants, Redskins.
Well, how about that old man Peterson with the 90-yard touchdown? I mean, the guy just gets better with every year he's in the league. It's pretty incredible, actually. But, this is an ugly game. From the Washington side, they're down to the third quarterback, Mark Sanchez now. And it's obviously going to bring everybody down. I mean, he couldn't get the ball downfield on Monday night at all. Even if he tried, he couldn't. And so I don't expect anything out of him. Don't expect anything out of any of the wide receivers because of that. But Peterson did break a 90-yarder against a tough run defense, and now you get the Giants and you're at home. They want to feed him. They've tried to feed him all year. So I think at this price tag, only 4,800 on DraftKings, I think you can keep him in your mix as a potential GPP option. And you also keep Chris Thompson in there too because of his pass catching ability. Yeah, building them lineups, you got to set it to where they don't put Peterson and Thompson in the same lineup, though. That would be, death. But I think you can keep them in the same pool, though.
Chop, I got to ask you a question here.
Talk to me.
How does a guy bust a 90-yard run and then not break 100 yards for a game?
Well, I tell you what happened was, obviously, I don't want to the guy they got down. They just wanted to play Chris Thompson. Once they got down, that was it. They didn't even give him a chance. I'd be curious to see how many. I don't have the numbers. How many carries he had in the second half? I bet he had what?
Could have been more than 2 to 3. I don't remember seeing him much. My other question is, how the hell did nobody chase him down? Come on now.
Dude, he was gone. Did you see that?
I saw it, but it was not like the Jets were turned on and he was gone. I mean,
I don't know, man. I'm going to have to somebody get one of them next-gen stats that clock the guy, as top speed. I bet that top speed was pretty good, man. But, yeah, he's good, man. So being at home, being a only a 4-point underdog, which I think you could honestly make this close to a pick 'em if I was setting the spreads there. I think he's got a chance to get some carries, a lot more carries than he got against Philly. They just, once they lost that lead, that was it. They had to force Chris Thompson in there. So Peterson's about the only option on that team I really like. Though for the Giants, it's the same old. Saquon is your number one guy, go-to guy. Eli don't trust, and because Eli's so bad, it's hard to trust Beckham. Everybody keeps chasing Beckham, but, man, it's all about Eli getting him the ball. If you can't get him the ball, then what good is Odell? So Saquon's the guy. Odell's just a GPP option until further notice.
Mark Sanchez, 4K on DraftKings, Derek. Interested or hell to the no?
Butt fumbles back in our lives. No interest for me when it comes to Sanchez. There's another cheap quarterback that you can go to. And as we talk about a lot this season, pricing at quarterback just hasn't been that tough. You can just pay up a little bit more to get an elite quarterback. So not too much interest there. And there's a lot of value at running back that we're going to get to as well. Don't mind Chop's call when it comes to Adrian Peterson. You talked about his long run and those next-gen stats. I mean, if Vernon Davis can be the fastest touchdown scorer the week before on Thanksgiving, I think AP could probably beat him in a foot race. So maybe he's still got a little bit left in the tank. I don't want to play him in a cash game, especially on DraftKings where we don't get that pass game involvement that we're looking for in a running back. But I think he's okay in tournaments. No interest in anyone else from Washington. I know Chris Thompson came back, but this is a week where we have two obvious value running backs, and he's kind of expensive at $5,400. And then, I agree with Chop. Pretty much two people that we're looking at from the Giants, Saquon Barkley. He's scored at least 20 fantasy points in 11 of his 12 games so far this season. That's an incredible floor. The price point isn't too bad. And Odell, hopefully they can just let Odell play some quarterback. I mean, he certainly looks better than Eli Manning back there. And he's going up against Josh Norman. These are always fun matchups. In the first meeting this season, he got 8 of 11 targets for $136. So I do think you can look at Odell, but everyone just keeps chasing that big game, waiting for it to happen. So I guess I can't stop now at this point.
Yeah, and this one did open up as a pick and was heavily bet on the Giants side, and they're sitting at 3.5, 4-point favorites now. So, butt fumble causing the line to move, and I agree. It's mainly the two Giants for me. I like the Beckham Norman narrative, but is Josh Norman even that good anymore? That's the question there. So Barkley mainly for me, Washington pretty much a stay away. Now let's get to a real game here, Derek. How about a 56-point total here? New Orleans and Tampa Bay. New Orleans coming off that tough loss in Dallas, back on the road again. So is that a concern for you? We know the narrative, years after year after year. It's Drew Brees on the road. You can't play him. This is a historically bad defense for Tampa Bay. So where do you come out on this New Orleans team? Who are your favorites? Is it the receiving game? Is it Kamara? Is it Ingram? And then Tampa Bay look good offensively. Can they keep it going here against the Saints?
Yeah, so it's worth noting that Tampa Bay has been a lot better defensively since they fired their defensive coordinator. I don't think that's really going to matter against the Saints. I still think you can play Breeze, but I will take Winston over him, especially with the $400 discount. I feel like I can get my exposure to the Saints offense through Alvin Kamara and Michael Thomas. Kamara is going to be my favorite running back play of the week, and he's the 4th most expensive on DraftKings, 5th most expensive on FanDuel, so you're getting a nice discount there. He just does so much, and he gets a lot of red zone work as well. Thomas, it's hard not to like him here. He's coming off of back-to-back bad games, so you got the squeaky wheel narrative going there. This is a spot where they may lean a little bit more on the passing game. If this game stays close, if it shoots out, we have two of the worst pass defenses in the NFL squaring off. So I could see this game, really shooting out, and I like those two superstars for the Saints. And for Tampa Bay, New Orleans, great against the run, bad against the pass. Tampa Bay's offense struggles to run the ball. They're really good passing the ball. So I think it's a great spot for Winston. If Deshaun Jackson's unable to play, we could fire up Godwin once again. In the 3 games that Deshaun has missed, Godwin has like 98, 101, and 105 yards, something like that. So at 4,900, I think he's going to be a great value. He will be popular after pretty much paying off everyone that played him last week. I think it's a good spot to go back to Mike Evans in tournaments. Not a great matchup against Lattimore, but, we've seen number 1 wide receivers have success against the Saints. And in their first matchup, he put up 7 for 147 and a touchdown. And then you can go with the peripheral pieces as well. Cameron Brate, Adam Humphries, I think they're viable. So you can stack this game. You can play both sides. If you're making tournament lineups, I would, put at least a couple aside for this game alone.
Yeah, for sure. Love this game. So, Chop, 2 questions. New Orleans, are you worried about them being on the road or all systems go? Tampa, I agree with Derek on the Mike Evans call. We saw Carolina rank very well against number 1 receivers. New Orleans, not so much, 27th in the league against number 1. So with everybody on Godwin, Humphries, where's your interest level in Mike Evans this week?
Mike Evans specifically is not a guy that I'm particularly fond of. I know he had a really big first week. So Lattimore, I just think, got off to a slow start this year, and I think that hurt the defense in general at the beginning of the year. They've picked it up. He's picked it up, and the defense has picked it up. So Evans had that big game against him in week 1, but last year Lattimore absolutely shut him down both meetings, just shut him down. So, yeah, I don't have much interest in Evans, man, especially with Godwin. We can play Godwin now. And you can even throw in some Humphreys. I like those guys' matchups even better than Evans. So as far as the rest of the Tampa side, yeah, I think Jameis is, he is what he is. I just mentioned the other 2 receivers I like even more. I think you got some touchdown equity with Brate right there. As always, I won't play a Tampa Bay running back. Haven't played one all year. I think I played Peyton Barber 1 time this year, and that was it. And I won't start now. So I'm out on that. On the other side, I don't mind going on the road here with New Orleans. They just lost a tough road game, and I would venture to guess that they are going to bounce back pretty hardcore here in this game. Derek said the defense has been improving, and with the defensive coordinator change, I did hear they made a personnel change too a couple weeks ago, which has helped the defense also. But another thing that's helped the defense and the numbers in general are the fact that some of their recent opponents have been Washington, who they can't pass the ball, San Francisco without Goodwin, so that's pretty easy. And 2 times in the last 4 weeks they faced Carolina, who doesn't exactly have great number 1 and number 2 wide receivers. They kind of spread it out, so the numbers are kind of nullified there. So I'll bet on the talent here. I'll bet on the Saints and all their passing entities here, and I think they're all in fine shape.
All right, next game, guys. We got New England and Miami. New England opened up pretty big favorites, came down a little action on Miami. So we're sitting anywhere between 7.5 to 8.5 for New England, about a 47-point total in this one. Chop, I'm looking through the pricing, and I see Rob Gronkowski at 4,800 on DraftKings. Never thought I'd see it. What do we do with that price? Because we know he's been bad. Can we play Gronk here at 4,800?
Well, I think, Gronk is now just one of those tight ends that, you have to look at him and compare him to the other guys in that price category, because that's what he is now. He's a guy who is not a week-to-week safe option like he used to be, but I'm sure there's upside still there. So it's just like, let's say Ebron was in that category and Ebron had some let's say it was Ebron from like last year, Like, it's the same kind of guy. Like, there's upside there. You just don't know when it's going to happen, but the safety isn't there. So, I mean, at 4,800, I'll take some shots on him in a GPP, but he's clearly not a cash game guy anymore. in your cash games, you're either paying up for an Ertz Kelsey type of guy, or you're paying way down at almost, $3,000 range and just hoping you get something. This is like no man's land in cash games, but for GPPs, you take his upside. As far as the game itself, New England, they just got all the weapons. Gordon looks good lately, so maybe Gordon. I mean, you can make a case for any Edelman, White, Michelle, even Burkhead's back now to throw in take away some snaps right there. But otherwise, New England is New England, man. It's hard to pinpoint this. When they're healthy, it's hard to pinpoint their fantasy performance. Miami's interesting because, I mean, it just seems like they're a bottom feeder team, but they're 6-6. They're not bad. I mean, technically they're still in the playoff hunt, so I'm sure they think that in their own heads they can get there. But Kenyon Drake is the guy here. Either Kenyon Drake, if you want to take some GPP shots on Kenny Stills or Devontae Parker, you could go there. But I think it's either Kenyon Drake or nothing for me.
Yeah, that's how. If I'm going to run it back, it's probably with Drake, and even that I'm not too excited about. So, Derek, the running situation, Chop hit on it. It's White, it's Michelle, it's Burkhead. Can you play any of them here? We know when all three are healthy, they're all going to get opportunities. As far as the receivers go, Josh Gordon likely dealing with Xavier Howard, kind of leading towards Edelman here, but he's 1,100 more than Josh Gordon. So, thoughts mainly on the New England offense, and then anything of interest for Miami.
Yeah, it's one of those spots where I like the Patriots offense as a whole, but I don't like any of their individual pieces. I don't trust anyone in the backfield with White, Michelle, and Burkhead all split in work. I think White's probably your best option on DraftKings, but he's 6,600. You can pay $2,000 more to get, a guy that's guaranteed 25 touches. There's a couple, stud running backs in the slate. So can't really play any of the running backs. I like you guys mentioned Gordon up against Xavier Howard. It's not that he can't win that matchup, but the Patriots probably won't need to go there. So I do like the Edelman call, but again, he's priced up. Gronk, don't really trust him right now. I would much rather play Eric Ebron over Gronk. Ebron's basically getting double-digit targets, and they probably have a better matchup. Yeah, he does have a better matchup against Houston. So not a lot to like on the Patriots. I expect them to score some points, but I don't think anybody's going to have a slate-breaking type of performance individually. For Miami, yeah, it's funny that Chop mentioned the record. I had no idea that they were at 500 for the season. We get so caught up in the fantasy production that I don't really pay too much attention to the standings outside of the Jaguars, who obviously aren't faring too well. But Tannehill, he hasn't thrown for 300 yards in over 2 years. Don't really expect him to break that streak this week. I do think Devontae Parker's interesting. He ended up playing 85% of the snaps, 7 targets last week. 2 of them were in the red zone. So if you want a deep tournament flyer, don't mind him, but probably not a ton of exposure for me in this game.
All right, let's move on to maybe the game of the week. Football-wise, DFS-wise, this one is very intriguing. We have Baltimore going to Kansas City here. Kansas City about a 7-point favorite here. What was intriguing is the total opened up at 49. It bet up quickly to 53 here. So, Derek, we know what the Chiefs are. It's just a juggernaut. So pick your favorite Chief. Do we play them all? Is there a fade in there for you? And then Baltimore, I think it's more of a hold. We don't know if Flacco's going to be back. Are they going to go with Lamar Jackson? Are they going to play both these guys? It's tough to pinpoint what to do with Baltimore. So let's focus mainly on the Chiefs. Do we just keep pressing them buttons and putting them in our lineups?
Yeah, I think so. I'm not too worried about the matchup against Baltimore. This is a spot where defenses may not matter as much as they appear on paper. Vegas still expecting to score close to 30 points. So you got to like all the Chiefs, especially since they are priced down on DraftKings. The only issue for me is that Baltimore has just been running the ball so much that opponents just haven't been able to run that many plays against them. So if Joe Flacco ends up being out again and Lamar Jackson's a quarterback, I just expect them to run a ton of, running plays once again. And it's not that Mahomes and them can't, put up 30 points quickly, but I'm not sure how many plays they're going to be running if the Baltimore offense is able to sustain some drives. So I do like the discount on Mahomes. I'll be using a ton of him in tournaments. I'll go back to Tyreek Hill. I know he's got some wonky home road splits, but he definitely has, those slate-breaking type of upside that we're looking for in tournaments. He's not a cash game option like I wanted him to be last week. Spencer Ware, he did, get most of the snaps, had 69% snap rate, 14 carries, 1 target. But after the game, it sounds like they kind of want it to be a 3-man committee moving forward. So I'm not sure I want to play Ware in this spot. I'll let other people, chase that production last week. And obviously Travis Kelce is going to be viable. But, yeah, for Baltimore, just going to be a wait-and-see approach with Joe Flacco. If he ends up playing and, gets significant number of snaps, whether they split it with Lamar or whatever, I do think you can bump up these receivers. It's a great matchup. It's a spot where they're going to be playing from behind, and they're going to have to keep up a little bit. So I will give the receivers for Baltimore quite a bit of a boost if Flacco ends up getting some snaps.
Yeah, I agree on that. I mean, John Brown's been on the side of a milk carton for a while now, Crabtree as well, and that's Lamar Jackson. But a couple things here with Kansas City. Derek hit on Spencer Ware, Chop. So thoughts there, 5,200, so not quite the free square we saw last week. And again, a committee there. They brought Sharkandrick West back into the fold, a guy that they trust. So that question, and then Tyreek Hill, thoughts there. I mean, I love going back to this guy. The price is down to 8K, and if you watch that game, he was close to 2 bombs, and it would have been a huge game. Everybody's playing Tyreek Hill, but the people that are just looking at the box scores and the fantasy points on DraftKings aren't going to see that. So do you expect him to be maybe lower owned here in a good spot to go back to?
Yeah, good questions. Interesting game here. I would say, like Derek said, we're getting that discount on Kansas City on some of these guys, so we can play that. So just trying to analyze this. I love Tyreek Hill again. I'll go back to that. I think, I mean, you could just obviously see this guy running down the sidelines and catching two long touchdown passes in this game just because, I mean, we all expected it last week and it didn't happen. So this would be the week it happened. So I like Tyreek Hill. I like Travis Kelce. Love Mahomes' price here. The running backs, that's interesting as everybody was locked into Ware last week. Would you call that a disappointment at 12 DraftKings points, guys? I mean, for 4K, I'll tell you what's disappointing for me about it was that it locked up a spot for me where that could have been Philip Lindsay. And in hindsight, Lindsay was only $1,500 more. I should have spent the money. But what would you classify 12 points as a letdown for $4,000 last week?
I would say he got you there. Like in cash games, you're probably like, okay, I'm happy with that. In tournaments, and he did appear in 6 of the top 10 lineups somehow with that done, but I guess he got it done. To me, it was more of a disappointment than I feel good about it. Derek?
Yeah, for me, everything's relative, and we had a lot of other running backs have big weeks. So I would say it was a disappointment, especially at that ownership. You kind of wanted 20 plus if he was going to be that highly owned, but yeah.
Yeah, so as far as those guys are this week, man, he got the price bump. It's a tough actual running matchup, but obviously Kansas City could do things. Like in my head, I'm thinking they're not going to be able to run the ball, so they're going to try to pass out of the backfield. He could be that guy, but it seemed like they wanted to get Damian Williams more in there in the passing game. So maybe Damian Williams at dead minimum 3K is the guy to go with this week. If they do decide Spencer Ware is the guy in the passing game, and I'm not in the Kansas City practice sessions. I don't know what their plan is, but whoever they want to get the ball in the passing game with Tyree or with who's the guy who hit the woman? I forget his name already.
Kareem Hunt. You already rolled him off, Chuck.
Yeah, he's out of there. He's dead to me now. So with Kareem Hunt out of there, I mean, I'm not sure we know who they want to have as the passing back. So whoever that guy is the guy I think is going to have a big game here. So, I mean, I guess you could take shots on both of them. Baltimore on the flip side, if Lamar Jackson is the quarterback, I'll play him because of his rushing upside. If he's the quarterback, I still don't have any interest in the wide receivers because he's not a good passer. I don't think Gus Edwards – this is not the Gus Edwards game for me. It may be a Ty Montgomery game because I still think KC puts up points and puts them behind the A-ball and they have to pass. But the splits for KC at home and on the road, pretty dramatic as far as their defense. Their defense gives up like 17.5 points a game at home, 32 points a game on the road, 335 yards on the road, 238 at home. Like the Chiefs' defense is really fueled by the crowd. I don't think it's a fluke. The crowd, the weather, whatever it is, but I think they're a bit better of a defense at home. And so I'm not going all in on Baltimore just because I think they're in catch-up mode and all that other stuff. I'm limiting the Baltimore shares this week.
Yeah, I'm with you. I mean, that's a very difficult place to play. Maybe the hardest place to play in the league, but maybe Chiefs defense could be a sneaky play, Chop. 2,300. I don't think a lot of people are going to look at that one. So, if it's Lamar Jackson, I'm interested there if it's Flacco. Maybe he's not 100%. You get some turnovers, but I like that call looking at them. But the Ravens, tough to get excited about that one. All right, 3 games left here in part 1 of the DFS OGs podcast. Thank you to everybody once again for tuning in. Let's move on, guys. We got Indianapolis and Houston. Chop, what happened to the Colts last week? It was supposed to be 3 touchdowns from Andrew Luck. Eric Ebron actually did okay, but he was supposed to have a big game. T.Y. Hilton, they got shut out. So do they respond here? Houston on an absolute roll. I think they've won about 9 in a row here. So does that run continue? Do the Colts respond? This looks like a fun game, Chop. What do you got?
Yeah, this is a very interesting game because obviously Houston's top of their division and on this big winning streak. Indianapolis is seriously still in contention for a playoff spot. When we any of those teams sitting around there at that 6-6 range still feel like they got they're only 1 game out of the playoffs. So it's an interesting game like that. As far as fantasy, let me pull up my TY numbers, because if my memory serves me correct, he always torches Houston in Houston. Looking back,
he had that one big game. I remember that one.
Yeah, last year he hit him up for 5 38 DK points last year. He had that one game a few years ago where 40 points in Houston. So he's had some success there. It's a good environment for him. It's more or less a dome stadium with artificial turf. So that's where he thrives. He's a speed guy. So you go to TY, Andrew. I've been saying for this whole streak that Houston's defense is still, they're good, but they're overrated relative to what they are. What I think they are. So I still think they're a tad bit overrated. I think TY can take advantage of it. I think Andrew Luck gets his 3 touchdowns here. Maybe Ebron gets involved. I don't have any interest in the running backs, but I think the passing game can thrive in this environment. For Houston, yeah, man, maybe an offense that pushes them is what Deshaun needs to get back over that, one of them big old games where he throws for 4 or 5 touchdowns. I can definitely see that happening this week. So Deshaun, DeAndre, all in the mix. They've featuring Demaryius a little more. I think they activated the freaking
Jonta Foreman.
Yeah, Foreman's back now, so maybe we take a few carries away from Miller, and that's good because I don't want to play him anyway. Maybe other people chase him and he loses some snaps in there, because Foreman was actually really good before he hurt his leg here last year. But yeah, so I'm all on both these passing games. I think this has the potential to be a huge shootout.
You're hurting Derek's feelings talking about Lamar Miller and taking him off the field, Chop. Come on.
Lamar Miller hurt my feelings these last couple of weeks with those big games.
Who would have thought if you could wager on Lamar Miller and Adrian Peterson breaking off 90-plus yard runs before the season started, you'd probably live in a mansion at this point. So, Derek, what do we do with the Colts here? Andrew Luck, I think, is an intriguing bounce-back candidate, but when you look at the splits, he's been so much better at home. 19 touchdowns and 4 interceptions. On the road, that's 13-8. Rating is about 30 points higher at home. Fantasy points is about 7 points higher per game. Is this noise? I know the small sample police are going to get on me here for this, but any worry about that, or do we go back to this offense here?
I'm not too worried about Luck's splits. I know it's always better to play indoors, but like Chop said, this stadium does have a retractable roof with the turf. So it's like an indoor game. And 2 of his bad outings were in the first 3 weeks of the season against Philly and Washington. So those are kind of bringing down his splits on the road. If you look at his last 7 games before the Jags, he was just crushing 22 plus in every single one of those games. He's only 5,900. So I do think you can look to Luck. Don't mind Hilton. You guys mentioned the big games that he's had against the Texans in the past. He's had 3 40 plus fantasy point outings in the last 3 or 4 years. So yeah, I do like that combination a little bit, and love Eric Ebron. Houston, one of the worst against tight ends so far this season. They're ranked 31st in DVOA against the position. Ebron had 15 targets last week, caught 10 of them. He's just been a weapon in the red zone all year. So with Jack Doyle out for the season, I like Ebron quite a bit, even at this price point. And then the Houston side, yeah, I like the passing game for them as well. Deshaun Watson has thrown fewer than 25 passing attempts in 5 of his last 6 games. I don't think they can rely on the run as much in this one. I think it's going to be a close game. So if Watson's going to air it out, then he's going to be one of the top quarterback plays of the week. I like pairing him up with Hopkins. Don't hate Demaryius Thomas if QT is going to be out again, but I won't be going to Lamar Miller just because there are two good value running backs that we're going to get to here shortly.
Yeah, we'll get to those in part 2, so make sure you guys come on back for that, where we cover the afternoon games, Sunday night, Monday night football, and, of course, answer some user questions. But those guys, I think, are going to be a big topic, so make sure you guys come back for part 2. Let's move on, guys. We've got 2 games left here, Carolina and Cleveland. This one sounds – I mean, it's going to be a fun game here. Cam Newton, turnover machine, Derek. Are we worried about that? Are we worried about his shoulder? Couldn't throw the old Hail Mary at the end, so – he's questionable. I think obviously he'll be fine. Seems to be questionable every week. Christian McCaffrey, 9,300, but continues to produce like a wide receiver and a running back, one all in one. I mean, the guy never leaves the field. So can we play him at 9,300? And then the Cleveland side of things. Obviously took one on the chin last week in Houston. Do they respond here? And are you interested against Carolina?
As far as Cam Newton goes, I think if they would have won that game last week, his shoulder would have been feeling a little bit better. I just get the feeling that they just played up in these losses, so not too worried about it. I don't think I'm going to be playing a ton of Cam this week. We know Cleveland's defense has been much better. It's been really good all season, actually. So as long as Baker Mayfield doesn't give Cam a bunch of short fields, I think their defense is going to play well in this one. Denzel Ward could be locked up against DJ Moore. So I think this could be a Curtis Samuel game once again. He's played well last couple of weeks. Not sure I want to pay $4,000 for him, but I think he's interesting in tournaments. If you're playing anyone from Carolina, it's going to be Christian McCaffrey. It's pretty easy to get him into your lineups, just the way lineup construction is shaken out this week with the value running backs. And it's just he can beat you in a number of different ways. He's got back-to-back 100-plus rushing yard games, back-to-back 10-plus target games. So he offers you a high floor and a high ceiling. I do think he's worth that price point if you want to pay all the way up at running back. And then for Cleveland, Carolina, they're known as a pretty good defense, but that just hasn't been the case. I mean, they're 27th in DVOA against the pass, and that was before last week. I'm guessing that that's going to drop even further once we get the new DVOA numbers released for the week. So I don't mind looking at Baker in tournaments. You can pair him up with Jarvis Landry. Finally had a 100-yard game last week. I know he's been frustrating all year, but he's only 5,800 on FanDuel. And Carolina's 30th in DVOA against tight ends. Maybe this is finally a week where Njoku gets going a little bit. He's only 3,900 on DraftKings. Probably not going to be touching the running backs. Chubb's a guy that they want to get, going here. But I just don't think I'm going to have room for him in my player pool this week.
All right, Chop, we smashing Christian McCaffrey at 9,300 again this week.
I don't think I am. Just so it boils down for me. But the only 2 guys for Carolina that I have any interest in are Cam Newton and Christian McCaffrey. Yes, I mean, you could include DJ Moore and Curtis Samuel in your player pool for GPPs, but even if I did that, I would probably set their ownership percentage from my personal lineup build. I'd pull a Dean and put him at 1%, make sure I get 1%. Because this guy's, when he spreads it around, I mean, they're all so unreliable. The only guys, Cam Newton, Christian McCaffrey, that's the only guys I have interest in over there. Cleveland, like Derek said, I could – man, Chubb's talented. We know what he can do. The upside is there, but there's just so many options this week. Like Derek said, I'm going to pass on the backfield here for Cleveland. Mayfield, Landry, even Callaway are in play right there. Njoku, man, I've fallen for this guy, this trap so many times this year. But another great match. Now, he had the same great matchup last week, and he completely let us down. Don't get me wrong. I'll take a shot at him. He's got the talent. He's got the matchup. He's got a good quarterback. Just take a shot and hope he pieces it together. But I like the passing attack here for Cleveland.
I don't even mind Ian Thomas on the other side. I mean, 2,700 for a tight end. And Olsen done for the year, so he's going to get opportunities. Got a lot of talent coming out of college, so he's intriguing to save some money at the tight end. But I like this game a lot. I think it's intriguing. I think there's a lot of ways you can go, but I'm definitely on Team McCaffrey. It just continues to get it done. The price continues to climb, but with good reason there on McCaffrey. All right. The fantasy gods, the football gods, boys, they were smiling on your boy here when Mike McCarthy was fired after that game. I'm the smiles from ear to ear here, and excited, ecstatic just to see what the future holds. But for now, Joe Philbin filling in, the offensive coordinator. What does that mean, Chop? What does it mean for Green Bay? Is it a hands-off approach? What do we do with Aaron Jones? Can we go back to that? Well, the price went up. Maybe Joe Philbin's a Williams guy. Who knows? So how are you attacking Green Bay here? And on the other side, Atlanta, been a disappointment all season long. Where's the interest level there in this game?
Yeah, you're right. We don't I mean, everybody's going to get excited, but we don't know what the new head coach has in mind. So
problem.
Yeah, that's an issue. I'll start off with the Atlanta side, like you said. Well, I'd like to get the weather here closer to game time. It's Green Bay. It's December. Sometimes that has a way of being cold and nasty out there. And Matt Ryan's always been a guy that's performed better indoors in Atlanta, under the dome. So I'd have some issues with this entire passing attack if it was nasty cold weather. It's not his kind of thing. So I think it would bring everybody down. Even though Julio Jones is a mutter. So I could play Julio Jones, but the rest of those guys would be off limits to me. Green Bay, man, I think I can go to Aaron Jones here. Price has risen, though. Maybe, hopefully, they turn him loose here finally. But I'll say this much. Deion Jones came back for Atlanta last week. Obviously, helped them out, made them look a lot better. Just one guy can make your defense look better like that. So I'd be a little bit leery of thinking this is the same Atlanta defense that got torched all year long because they are a little bit healthier now. But I could go with Aaron Jones, Aaron Rodgers. Devontae Adams is absolutely 100% matchup proof. And that's the guy I would roll with Cobb looking like he's back again. Like I think he was back last week. I mean, that kind of takes that entire four-headed monster of Cobb, ESB, MVS, and Jimmy Graham off the board for me. Adams is the only guy I want in the passing game.
Yeah, I mean, he always gets it done. Even in an ugly game, ugly loss, he still gets his numbers, still gets his targets. So, Derek, what are you doing with Green Bay here? Again, we're excited. There's change. Finally, we wanted McCarthy out. He's gone. But what do we do with this offense here? Can you play Aaron Jones? I love the thought of going back to him. The price is up. He disappointed everybody. Also a little scared. But I look at the line, 6-point Green Bay favorites here at home against Atlanta. That's a lot higher than I would have put it at. So what do we do with the Packers? And then is it just Julio or bust on the other side?
Yeah, a lot to like in this game. How much do you think Aaron Rodgers had to pay Crosby to miss that field goal?
Oh, he went and talked to him. Just put one off the post, and we're home free, buddy. So those two are boys, so they're probably out celebrating.
Yeah, they got to be. I'm expecting big things from Green Bay here. Their offense has just been struggling all year. Just makes sense after they fire McCarthy just for them to have a huge game. Nice matchup against the Falcons, whose defense has been struggling all year. I'm fine with Rodgers. I love the spot for Devontae Adams. He's had a string of tough cornerback matchups. I'm not too worried about that with the Falcons. They're ranked 28th in DVOA against number 1 wideouts, and he's matchup proof anyway, like Chop said. So love Adams here. I think you can pair him up with Rodgers. I do think you can play Jones. You got to think that they're going to change things up a little bit, not give Jamal Williams so many carries or so many snaps in this game where they are going to be playing from ahead. And if Chop said if the weather's bad, you could play Aaron Jones, mix him up with the Packers defense as well as a nice little correlation play there. We know Matt Ryan has not been good outdoors historically. If that's going to be a bad weather game, I really like that correlation play. And for the Falcons, it's pretty much one guy, and that's Julio Jones. I was finally on the right side of him. I had him in my lineup up until Sunday, ended up taking him out. I had that really bad game against Baltimore. It's kind of going to be the squeaky wheel narrative a little bit. There was the lowest passing yards for Ryan in his career when he has attempted at least 10 passes. So, in one of the worst games of Julio's career. So I do expect him to get going. 7,900 for a guy that was basically getting 20-plus fantasy points every week before last week. I think it's a really good buy low spot on him. And, yeah, the rest is just going to be weather, just checking the weather up until kickoff.
So let me get this straight. You were on Julio. You took him out, and he had a bad game.
Finally. I was on the right side.
You're breaking the streak, so it must count if he's even in your lineup on Sunday at any point that the streak continues. So I think it is a great spot to go back to him. The young Green Bay corners I'm encouraged by, but they're not shutdown corners. So Julio, this feels like a spot where this could go over that total. Could get some back and forth here. And if Green Bay's offense shows any improvement, I think Atlanta can keep up. So an intriguing game stack, a lot of ways you can go with that one. And that'll wrap us up here, guys, for part 1 of the DFS OGs podcast covering Week 14. Again, come on back for part 2. We will discuss waiver wire wonders, Jeff Wilson Jr., Jalen Samuels. How do you want to play them in your lineups? Do you want exposure? Do you want to fade them? We will answer those questions along with some other user questions. Guys, any final thoughts here before we get out of here for part 1? Derek.
Yeah, I'm just excited to hear Chop's season-long update. Want to see if he snuck into the playoffs somehow.
Yeah, we'll see. We'll get that update. It's always a thing we look forward to in part 2. Chop, you want to give any hints, any hot takes, anything before we get out of here for part 1?
My only teaser would be we will also discuss round 1 of the Best Ball Championship, and in addition to the season-long update. But for now, I've got some Chinese food waiting, man. We got to get going.
We got to get out of here. You don't want cold Chinese food. Nothing worse than that. So for Head Shopper, for Notorious, I am Beer saying salut. Thank you for listening, everybody. We'll see you right back here in part 2. We're out of here.